What's up guys, Syiler here, and you guys can enjoy some PvP footage in the background while I'm talking about this, but we're going to be talking about the legendary of this expansion, and basically legendaries in general, and, you know, what people think of it, and, you know, just general thoughts and opinions on the Cloak. So, a lot of bad stigma's been going around about the Cloak, people feeling it's underwhelmed, it's easy to get, you know, it's underwhelming, it's not a weapon. It seems a bit crappy, it doesn't look very good, the proc's kind of shit, you know, it's just not a very cool legendary, anyone can get it, you know, it's for any class and spec, it's a bit noob, you know, that kind of thing. And basically because it's not a weapon and they've not gone down the same route they previously have. But I feel they've done good with the legendary of this expansion, we'll get into that a bit later on, but if we look at the legendaries of previous expansions, the vanilla legendary people didn't really like because it was a huge RNG drop rate, first of all, and then it was a massive like grind. And it just, you know, it wasn't as cool as it should have been. Like the actual legendary was awesome when you got it, but most guilds never even seen an Eye of Sulfuras. Like it just didn't exist. It just never dropped, you know? So that kind of made it, especially in a 40-man raid, you know, you got 40 people to gear up, and the chance of you getting one person the legendary was pretty much zero. It didn't make it feel legendary, it just made it feel annoying, like, oh great, this item that is just RNG based. It's not, I've not done anything epic to get it, I've just been lucky. And then in TBC they moved on to a less of a grindy one, but still kept the RNG factor in of, you know, you kill the end bosses, the big bad bosses of the game, and you have a chance of getting an awesome weapon from it. And that was kind of cool, but still, once again, you know, a guild could have been killing it for months and months and months and never seen one drop, and then a guild comes in and finally gets it down later on, like another guild, and that's their first kill, and they get it straight away, while a guild that's been clearing it for months and months has never seen one. So it's one of those, again, like, that other guild has kind of worked for it, but not as much as the guild that's been killing it for months, and they've never seen one, you know? So, once again, there's still a lack of that person having to actually do anything for the legendary. And then we move into Wrath, and Wrath, I think, is where things started getting better for legendaries. The Ulduar one was a bit weird, you know, randomly shards would drop, and you'd combine those shards together to make a mace. There was no real story behind it, but it was less RNG based because, you know, you'd be able to get, every guild had a few people with them, at least one person with them in that tier, while more luckier guilds would have like 2 to 3, but in general every guild got one. You know, if they were raiding 25-man Ulduar frequently every week and were able to kill a few bosses, they would get the mace. So that was on its way to being a cool idea, and then in ICC, I feel that was where they perfected it in a sense. It had a story behind it. You'd forge this weapon, you know, you'd get a normal weapon first of all, which was decent. It was pretty good to begin with, especially if you know, you'd been unlucky with your drops in terms of weapons. You'd get this weapon, and then you'd build it up, and you'd get these items, and you'd make it a really powerful legendary weapon that you've built up, that you've created due to your hard work. And I thought that was a really cool idea, and they kept that idea through to Cataclysm with the legendary staff and the daggers. And the staff was cool, with the fact that it built up 3 times, was it? I can't remember, but I know you got like the first, second, and third stages of the staff, whatever, and there was a quest chain that you'd follow through in Firelands and to do with the dragonflight and things like that behind it. And that, once again, was a really cool concept, and it had story behind it, it had progression, and it was available to those who, you know, rated normal or heroic, and that was available to 10-man guilds as well. Just not as frequently, but every guild should have had one if they were raiding and they had one person who was committed to getting the items. And then the Dragonzor one was a little bit weird. They kind of went in the wrong direction with that one and made it very unique to one person, just rogues. So that made rogues like a must-have for pretty much any 25-man guild and some 10-mans, because you wanted a rogue to have those legendaries. So most guilds, the guild that I was in, I joined a couple of guilds during that time, and each guild had like 3 or 4 rogues because the legendaries were so powerful. They wanted people to have them to help them progress on heroic progression. You'd be stupid not to get as many people as you can legendaries in your guild. So that was that, and that was a bit strange. Like, I didn't really like that concept of just one person getting it. Fair enough if they could have made it maces or axes maybe, and then, you know, enhance could have even used it, I don't know, but I guess they just wanted this cool quest where you had to use your class abilities and it was all crazy and stuff, but not many people got to experience it. There wasn't a huge amount of rogues playing, and obviously there was a lot of rogues, but there wasn't a huge amount of rogues playing, about the same or less than any other class on average. So yeah, every guild had 1 to 2 rogues, and only those 1 to 2 rogues per guild got to experience the quest. And then you got the Mr. Pandaria one, which was, the first tier was kind of strange. The Shower Touch gem was cool, but the fact that we got it and then that was the end of it, like we used it in a Shower Touch weapon, then the end of the tier happened, and that was the last we ever seen of that gem, was a little bit strange. Made it feel a little underwhelming, but it was awesome at the time. Having a 500 strength gem in my weapon was like, yeah, now we're talking. That was really cool, but the fact that we just kind of ditched it after that was a bit, If we could have got that dragon gem and put our Shower Touch in that, that would have, but I feel that would have made some weapons a little bit too overpowered. And so, okay, so let's look at people's complaints first of all, and then we'll look at the positives. So the negatives of what people are saying anyway, first of all, they feel it's a bit crappy being a cloak, so people don't like the idea of it being a cloak. Well, I can kind of agree with them, but why does it always have to be a weapon? Why not mix it up a little bit? And let's look at the issues for the being legendary weapons in the game. First of all, a legendary weapon introduced to the game causes huge issues in PvP. So that means as soon as someone gets a legendary, they are pretty much the best class that tier in PvP in terms of DPS or whatever, because they've got a huge boost. They've got a huge weapon boost that no one else has. So that gives them an unbalanced issue in PvP. And then Blizzard either need to fix that issue or just ignore it. And most of the time they ignore it because it's hard to fix without kind of making the weapon obsolete in PvP. And that's what they didn't really want to do at the time. But they've kind of changed the concepts on that now anyway. So it doesn't always have to be a weapon. And a cloak, I feel, is quite accessible. It's quite cool to have. So in terms of weapons, that was kind of bad. The other issue with weapons was the fact that whoever had that, for example, the rogue one, that meant you needed rogues in your guild, and rogue was now the best DPS that you had to have. So that means other things weren't as good because you wanted the thing that was better. Firelands range dominated or range casters dominated because of the legendary. So you wanted to have more casters than you would melee. So it always causes unbalancing issues in the raid, while with the cloak, everyone can get it as long as they put the work in, which means everyone's going to be on equal footing in terms of legendary. And the other issue, the other upside, I guess, to it being a cloak is the fact that if they make it anything else apart from a weapon, it causes issues. For example, if it's a trinket ring or neck or whatever, it doesn't feel as cool because it's not actually on show, unless it has kind of a crazy proc all the time. But once again, you've not got something to show off. Someone would have to inspect you to see that you've got a legendary item. While if it's a weapon, if it's a cloak, it's very visual as long as you've got cloaks on. Now, if they were made to make it a main piece, for example, helm, legs, shoulders, chest, gloves, if they were to make it one of your main pieces, which is for tier, then that'd mean you'd go for the other 4 pieces for tier. For example, if it's a legendary helm instead of a cloak, that means you'd always get shoulders, chest, legs, and gloves in terms of tier. And head would always be obsolete, so why would they even put that in the game? Like, a legendary tier would then become useless. So I don't feel going down the route of main pieces is a viable option, and most of the off pieces aren't really a viable option either. Like, a belt feels a bit underwhelming, rings are definitely underwhelming, trinkets are, they could do something cool with trinkets, but still, it's not on show. Braces, obviously, very, very underwhelming. Neck, there's nothing like that that would really be cool. So I definitely feel cloak is the best option out of the things that we've got to choose from, apart from weapons. So that makes sense, that makes perfect sense. And the other issue people have is the fact that it's so easy to get. Well, it's not really easy to get. Yeah, the requirements to get it are quite low, but you still need to play the game. And a lot of people are very, very lazy. you have to have started the quest, and from day one, as soon as you hit 90, you could start the quest, and you had to progress through. And those who started it then and have worked kind of, you know, have logged on and done the stuff each week, have the cloak by now. Those who haven't don't have the cloak, and some are very, very far behind, and some aren't very far behind, but that depends on how much they've actually played the game. They still had to put in, each person has to have put in their own amount of effort behind the quest to get the cloak. For example, my shaman's only just finished the meta part because I've been slacking on my US shaman, while my EU paladin already has the meta part and is midway into the runestones. It just depends how much effort you actually put into the quest will depend on your reward. And that's perfectly fine, so those next patch will get the cloak, legendary cloak, a lot faster than those who have slacked. That sounds good to me. Those who deserve it will have that boost sooner rather than later. But eventually everyone can get it, just not at the same time. So I like that concept. I like the fact that we've built through, you know, we've not always progressed on the cloak, but we've built through this legendary quest chain that you've had to progress through. And then eventually you've got your cloak, and then you've worked on it, and you've done all these things to harness power and make the most out of these bad bosses that you've killed. You know, you're taking advantage of the fact that this mob that was extremely powerful is just dead. You know, you're taking something from it and enhancing something else. So that's a cool concept. Other people's complaints are the fact that it looks a bit crap, and I guess I can agree with that slightly, but apparently, I can't remember if this was confirmed or not yet, but apparently the cloak will be transmoggable. Don't quote me on that one, but I believe they said the proc will just be linked to the cloak, so you can transmog the cloak, but the proc will still happen regardless. And it'll also happen if you're in like kitty form or bear form and things like that as well. But don't quote me on the first part of that, I'm not too sure, I can't remember. So, there's that. Next issue people had was the fact that there's going to be a new island, and there's going to be a boss that is specific for people who have the legendary cloak. Now, this what baffles me. People say that... So, people are complaining that everyone can get the cloak, first of all. And then people are complaining the fact that they can't kill the boss if they don't have the cloak, which they're then saying it's mandatory that they get the cloak. Well, it's mandatory that you get the cloak anyway. If you're a raider who's semi-serious, you should be getting the cloak. If you don't have the cloak and the new boss is out for those who have the cloak, then you're obviously not very serious and you don't care anyway. So I don't really see that as a valid argument. People kind of want everything but want nothing at the same time. They want basically the cloak to be specific to only certain people, and they don't want it to be underwhelming. But if people who have the cloak get something special that they don't, then they're unhappy about it. Kind of strange. So I like the concept that those who have the legendary cloak have a chance at something extra, you know, something bonus. They have something better than everyone else, you know. Everyone else won't be able to do that boss until they get the cloak, and everyone will get it as long as they're doing, you know, they're playing the game. So I don't see that as an issue, but people are going quite crazy with it, saying it's unfair, and the fact that they deserve to do the boss as well. It should only take one person who has a legendary cloak to summon it, and everyone else can kill it. But why? Why should you get the chance to do something when you've slacked, and that guy who's worked hard won't see the benefit of it because everyone else will be getting it anyway? Why should he just not slack and wait for someone else to get the cloak, you know? I find that perfectly fine. I think that those only who have completed the quest and got the cloak should be allowed to do this extra new boss. There's still going to be other world bosses for people to do, so people can't use their unfair I want to see all the content card, because they will get to see the content. They'll get to do the normal world bosses, but this is like a bonus one. This is like doing Raiden, you know? It's for those who are able to achieve it. You can't complain and say that you can't kill Raiden if you're not in a heroic raiding guild, if you're only doing LFR, because that's a bonus for those who have actually worked hard. So I agree with that. I find that perfectly fine. And most people complained about the rogue only legendary, and I really didn't like the idea of that either, but then complain the fact that everyone gets one, and that confuses me. I feel that there's no it's fine that everyone is allowed a legendary cloak. It means everything is viable in a sense. It means that one thing isn't more powerful than another. And that's what I've always hated about the legendary idea, is that something becomes more powerful than everything else because of basically not luck in the sense of that player, but that Blizzard have decided to give these classes a legendary this expansion while everyone else doesn't get one. So, I mean, there's certain classes that haven't seen a legendary for ages. I don't think Enhance has really ever seen a legendary. Hunter hasn't seen one for quite a while. You know, there's classes that just haven't seen a legendary for a long time, and they're kind of left in the shadows. Why not? Why can't everyone who works hard have a chance at getting a legendary that's very, very powerful and useful as long as they've worked hard? At some point in the game, they've got it, you know? And in terms of the procs being underwhelming, the procs can't be too powerful, I feel. They're okay. Don't get me wrong, some of them are better than others, especially like the tank, like all of them have great uses in certain situations, but they're not like, oh my god, OP, like previous weapon procs. But I feel that's a good thing, because the weapon, the cloak is already hugely above everything else in the game. Like 600 item level at the moment is 70-ish item level above anything else you can currently get in the game. And that's just for the epic version, that's not even the legendary. You're getting 70 item level above everything available in this current tier on one piece. That is a huge, like, that's going from Kata gear to mop gear. That is a huge Kata raiding to mop raiding, sorry. Not just gear, but a whole, like, expansion of raiding. Upgrade level. Like, that is a massive, massive upgrade. So I don't feel it's underwhelming at all, because if they make the proc too powerful, then the cloak really will be a huge thing. The other thing people are saying is, I mentioned this before, but saying that now that they're adding a legendary boss, it makes the cloak, oh, the pogo, it makes the cloak mandatory. But I don't understand that. If you're not doing the quest, if you're not bothered about the quest, but only for this boss, then what are you doing? Like, if you're raiding, you should be aiming to get the cloak anyway, because it's very basic things that you need to do. And now that they've added a boss for those who only have the cloak, it then makes it mandatory? No, it should be mandatory from day one. If you're in, like as I said, if you're more than an LFR raider, then that's where you should care. Then you should be doing that anyway. You should actually care about getting this legendary cloak. So, overall, I really like the idea of the legendary cloak. I feel it fits. There's no real downsides to it. As I said, everyone can get it eventually, but those who work harder will get it sooner. It is a bit RNG related in some aspects, for example, the Titan Runestone. Some people can get it done very quick, while some have been on it for ages, and they're trying to fix that with the guaranteed one a week at least. So, you know, there's aspects that make it still worthwhile for those who work hard. They'll still get it quicker than those who haven't tried at all. I feel it fits in terms of not being a weapon for a change. I like the change in terms of not the same thing every single time. A weapon for every class would have been weird. So I prefer that. The fact that everyone gets it sounds good to me. As I said, allows everyone an equal chance of getting it as long as they put the work in. The procs seem fine. The extra boss seems fine. Like, I can't see any downsides to this legendary compared to every other expansion's legendary. Every other expansion legendary has had huge issues, and this one I see as a very, very minor issue. But leave your comments below, and we'll hopefully make a bit of a friendly discussion regarding the legendary cloak in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. Look out for more rants, videos, guides, and things like that coming very soon. See ya!